So I want you to picture yourself standing in the remote wilderness of Alaska.
Oh, yeah, just completely off the grid.
Exactly. Like it's the dead of winter. The nearest paved road is, I don't know, miles away. The sun barely grazes the horizon. And the cold is just so absolute, it almost feels heavy, you know?
Right, it's that kind of bone-chilling cold.
Yeah. And when you are standing in that kind of profound isolation, your environment starts to play tricks on your mind. Like the shadows in the tree line look a little too tall, or a snapped twig echoes through the woods like a rifle shot.
It really is an environment that brutally forces you to confront just how small and, well, vulnerable you are.
Oh, totally.
And historically, that kind of vast, uncontrollable landscape breeds a very specific kind of human reaction. I mean, when faced with the overwhelming and the unknown, we tend to do one of two things.
Right.
We either create monsters to explain the terror, or we build massive, world-altering machines to try and conquer it.
Which is the exact mission for this deep dive. Today, we have a really fascinating stack of sources that look at how the Alaskan bush has been the epicenter for both of those extreme human reactions.
It's quite the spectrum.
It really is. We're looking through historical articles about a completely abandoned ghost town, digging into some extensive investigative files, including detailed excerpts from this book called Angels Don't Play This HAARP, and we're also analyzing a Vice News documentary that explores a highly classified billion-watt military project.
That's a lot of ground to cover.
It is. So, okay, let's unpack this. We're going to trace a narrative through line from an alleged terrifying cryptid that managed to empty an entire town, all the way to a massive array of military antennas that has sparked like some of the most intense global conspiracy theories of our modern era.
Yeah, it's a really compelling evolution to track. We are moving from a monster of local folklore hiding in the deep woods to a technological behemoth hiding in plain sight.
Right, hiding in plain sight. But to understand the technological behemoth, we first have to, understand the psychology of the folklore.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Where do we start?
So our sources take us down to the southern edge of the Kenai Peninsula, to a place called Portlock. And this wasn't some fleeting temporary settlement. It was founded way back in 1786.
Wow, that's old for that area.
Yeah. And by the early 20th century, it was a bustling little cannery town. You had fishermen pulling in massive hauls, loggers working the deep timber, miners looking for a strike. I mean, it was a thriving community.
But not for long, right?
No, by 1950, it was completely abandoned, like a literal ghost town. And the official historical record is incredibly dry and mundane about it. It claims the residents simply left to be closer to the new state highway system.
Which is the boring bureaucratic explanation.
Exactly. But the unofficial history, documented in our sources, paints a much darker picture. They fled from something the locals call the Nantiinaq.
Right, the Nantiinaq. The word actually comes from the Danina Native Alaskan language, and it translates literally to those who steal people.
That is a chilling name.
It really is. And we aren't talking about a vague, spooky story told around a campfire to scare kids. The residents of Portlock attributed decades of very real, highly gruesome deaths to this creature.
Yeah, they really believed it.
They did. They described it as a massive, hairy, half-man, half-beast. So it was essentially a deeply localized, highly aggressive variation of Bigfoot.
And the specific details in these historical accounts are what really get under your skin. Like, take the events of 1931. A logger named Andrew Kamluck was found dead in the woods.
Oh, right, the logging equipment incident.
Yes. The official cause of death was blunt force trauma. He was allegedly struck over the head with a piece of logging equipment, but the physical evidence at the scene just didn't add up.
Because of the weight of the equipment, right?
Exactly. The piece of equipment used was incredibly heavy, far too heavy for any normal human to lift, let alone swing with lethal force. And even more bizarre, Kamluck's blood was found on a crane fully 10 feet away from where his body was dumped.
That's terrifying.
It gets worse. Over the next few years, you have seasoned hunters reporting massive 18-inch footprints dragging a freshly killed moose into the dense fog.
18 inches. Wow.
Yeah, and by the 1940s, cannery workers were allegedly vanishing into the tree line. One terrifying account even details a completely mutilated body washing up in the local lagoon.
So you have a town gripped by absolute panic.
Absolute panic. People were so terrified they literally packed up their entire lives, abandoned their homes, and fled the town forever.
Looking at those accounts, it's super easy to see why panic set in. But the sources introduce this brilliant layer of psychological complexity by bringing in a modern local perspective.
Oh, the interview with Sally Ash.
Yes, Sally Ash. She grew up near Portlock, and she offers a sharp counter-narrative, outright claiming that her cousin, Melania Keel, basically invented the killer aspect of the Bigfoot narrative.
Wait, invented it? Just made it up?
According to Ash, yeah, her cousin was just exhausted by tourists constantly asking why the town died. Ash insists that Portlock died for purely economic reasons. You know, the fish dried up, the schools and churches relocated, and the jobs moved to the highway.
Ah, so the classic ruthless boom and bust cycle of a frontier town.
Exactly.
I mean, it makes perfect sense. Isn't it far more likely that the extreme isolation, the bitter cold, and the brutal economic realities of 1950s Alaska just made a monster convenient scapegoat?
It's definitely a plausible theory.
Think about the setup of a classic horror movie like John Carpenter's The Thing. The environment itself is hostile and suffocating. When you are slowly losing your livelihood and the woods surrounding your home are vast and objectively dangerous.
You need something to blame.
Right. Maybe it's just psychologically easier to blame a physical monster you can visualize rather than accepting the slow, invisible, crushing death of macroeconomics.
That is a highly plausible sociological reading. I mean, when a community feels entirely powerless against an overwhelming environment, personifying the threat is a totally natural defense mechanism.
It gives the fear a face.
Exactly. It gives the ambient fear a face. It makes the unpredictable wilderness feel somewhat manageable. But that contradiction in Sally Ash's testimony is what makes this so fascinating.
Oh, right, because she still believes in it.
She does. In the very next breath, after debunking the killer myth, Ash herself states unequivocally that she still believes the Nantiinaq is real.
It's wild.
She describes it in vivid detail as a tall, hairy, smelly, part-human giant. She recalls how the locals respected it, kept their distance, and how her elders explicitly warned her never to go out on foggy days.
Because that's when it walks.
Because that's when the Nantiinaq walks, yeah. So she may have stripped away the Hollywood murder mystery aspect, but she fundamentally validated the monster's existence in the local psyche.
Which just proves that the Alaskan wilderness demands a healthy respect for things you can't fully see or understand.
Absolutely.
And that creates the perfect narrative bridge to our next phase of history. Because while the residents of Portlock were fleeing an alleged monster in the trees in the 1950s, just a few decades later, the military moved into the Alaskan bush near a town called Gakona.
To build a very different kind of monster.
A completely different kind. This one wasn't made of hair and bone. It was made of metal, endless miles of wire, and billion-watt transmitters.
We are, of course, talking about HAARP.
Yes, HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
Originally built as a joint project by the Air Force and the Navy.
Right. And I want to lay out the official line on HAARP first, like the exact phrasing you'll find on their pristine fact sheets and the talking points you'll hear if you ever attend one of their public open houses.
They're very consistent with their messaging.
Very. They claim it is an unclassified, purely scientific facility. It's essentially a massive field of antennas designed to study the ionosphere, which is the electrically charged layer of the upper atmosphere.
Just doing some light upper atmosphere observation?
Yeah, the stated goal is just basic research to improve radio communications and figure out how to maintain contact with deep-sea nuclear submarines.
What's fascinating here is the geography of that specific choice. Why spend a fortune to build this incredibly complex, highly sensitive instrument in Gakona, Alaska?
Right. Why there?
The sources use a perfect phrase, miles from nowhere. The profound isolation that bred the Nantiinaq myth is the exact same isolation the military requires for its hardware.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, to blast unprecedented amounts of radio frequencies into the sky, you need an environment virtually free of local electromagnetic interference. You can't have local radio stations or commercial flight paths muddying the data.
And conveniently, you are far away from prying eyes.
Very convenient.
Yet despite being geographically miles from nowhere, HAARP has somehow attracted the paranoid gaze of the entire world. I mean, our Vice news source does a deep dive into how HAARP has become the holy grail of modern conspiracy theories.
It really is the ultimate lightning rod for conspiracies.
It's been blamed for literally everything. Government mind control, modifying global weather patterns to cause droughts, triggering targeted earthquakes, and even, I kid you not, acting as a beacon to communicate with UFOs.
The UFO angle is always a classic.
Always. Now, we need to be incredibly clear with you, the listener. Our goal today isn't to validate those specific conspiracies or get dragged into the political fallout they cause.
Right, we're sticking to the sources.
Exactly. Our job is to look at the actual patents, the documented corporate history, and the stated capabilities in our source material that sparked these wild theories in the first place.
And to understand how a facility supposedly designed to study the Northern Lights ended up in the crosshairs of global suspicion, you have to look at its bizarre origin story.
It is so weird.
It didn't start in a top-secret Pentagon war room. It actually started with an oil company's logistical nightmare.
Yeah, I was reading through the background on this, and it is wild. So back in the 1980s, the Atlantic Richfield Oil Company, better known as ARCO, had a massive financial headache.
They found the gas but couldn't move it.
Right. They had discovered trillions of cubic feet of natural gas sitting deep under the permafrost of the north slope of Alaska. It was an energy gold mine, but it was completely unmarketable.
Because of the location.
Building a pipeline to get that gas down to civilization would cost an estimated $20 billion. So they hired this brilliant physicist named Dr. Bernard Eastland to figure out what to do with all this stranded energy.
And Eastland formed a tiny subsidiary called APTI.
Yeah, and his solution was bordering on science fiction.
It really was. Eastland looked at the astronomical cost of a pipeline and essentially said, if we can't move the energy to the people, let's burn it right here to power something massive.
Just use it on the spot.
Exactly. He proposed using that localized reserve of natural gas to power the largest ionospheric heater on Earth. And to understand the sheer scale of what he was proposing, we have to look closely at his foundational blueprint, which is patent number 4,686,605.
Okay, so I was looking over Eastland's patent, and my eyes completely glazed over at the phrase electron-cyclotron resonance heating.
It sounds like Star Trek technobabble.
It really does. Like, how is this different from just building a massive radio tower and pointing it at the sky?
Okay, it requires a bit of physics, but it's actually incredibly elegant. Think of the ionosphere as an active, buzzing electrical shield protecting the planet from harsh cosmic radiation.
Okay, got it.
It starts about 30 miles above our heads and is packed with free electrons. Eastland's patent aimed to use this electron-cyclotron resonance heating to manipulate those particles.
Manipulate them how?
Well, every electron in that magnetic field has a natural spin frequency. If you pulse radio waves at the exact same frequency that those electrons are already spinning, they absorb the energy exponentially.
Wait, really? Exponentially?
Yeah. It's exactly like pushing a child on a swing.
Yeah.
If you push at the precise moment the swing is coming back down, you add energy to the system and the child goes higher and higher.
Oh. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. By pushing those electrons at their resonant frequency, Eastland wasn't just scattering energy like a flashlight beam, which is what older antennas did, right?
Right, it wasn't a scattershot approach.
His design focused gigawatts of energy into a highly concentrated point in the ionosphere, heating the charged particles to relativistic speeds.
Meaning a fraction of the speed of light.
Which is insane. To use a different analogy, it's like taking a giant magnifying glass on a sunny day to burn a hole in a leaf, but you were doing it on a planetary scale.
That's a great way to visualize it.
He was literally proposing to lift and bulge a localized section of the upper atmosphere out into space. And the patent explicitly cites the early 1900s work of Nikola Tesla.
Oh, Tesla, of course.
Specifically, Tesla's concepts of wireless power transmission and his infamous teleforce concepts, which the press back then dubbed death rays.
Yeah, and the patent itself makes no effort to hide the apocalyptic potential of this transmission.
Not at all.
Eastland wrote in the filing that this technology could cause total disruption of global communications, like knocking out land, sea, and air signals for entire regions.
It's wiping out comms.
Completely. He also claimed that by lifting the atmosphere, he could create a massive drag effect that would physically destroy the guidance systems of incoming enemy ICBMs.
Wow.
He even proposed that by altering the upper atmosphere's wind patterns, you could modify global weather or artificially increase ozone and nitrogen levels over specific targets.
So it was the ultimate dual-use technology.
Exactly. On one hand, beneficial energy transmission and basic science. On the other, a devastating Star Wars-level planetary defense weapon.
Which explains exactly why the military suddenly swooped in.
They couldn't resist that kind of capability.
No way. And this brings us to the paper trail of HAARP, which reads like a spy thriller. This is where we see how Eastland's wild patent got swallowed whole by the black budget corporate web.
A corporate shell game.
Yeah. Remember APTI, the tiny subsidiary Eastland formed for the oil company? They had a grand total of 25 employees.
Tiny.
Yet when the Department of Defense put the massive HAARP project out for competitive bids, this tiny, unheard-of company won the contract over Raytheon. And Raytheon is one of the largest, most entrenched defense contractors on the planet.
It makes no sense on paper.
None. How does a 25-person startup beat a global military-industrial giant?
Well, they won for one simple reason. APTI held the exclusive rights to Eastland's 12 patents. They owned the intellectual property required to make the machine actually work.
So the military didn't care about the company's size.
Not at all. They just needed those patents.
Okay.
And once APTI secured the contract, a dizzying corporate shell game immediately began. A massive corporation called E-Systems swooped in and bought APTI entirely.
And according to our sources, E-Systems is not just any defense contractor. They noted that 85% of E-Systems' billions in annual revenue comes from highly classified black budget work for the CIA and the NSA.
Serious dark money.
Yeah. They are literally the company that builds the central nervous system for the global intelligence community.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what you are looking at is a masterclass in military compartmentalization and need-to-know protocols.
Oh, for sure.
By burying Eastland's controversial patents deep within the labyrinth of a massive intelligence contractor, the military achieved immediate plausible deniability.
So they just pushed him out.
They fired Eastland, publicly distanced themselves from his more terrifying apocalyptic claims about weather warfare and missile destruction, and kept the project moving forward under the benign guise of basic auroral research.
It's brilliantly sneaky.
And the punchline to the corporate shell game. Eventually, Raytheon, the giant that APTI originally beat for the contract, simply bought E-Systems.
Just scooped him right up.
Yep, acquiring the patents, the intelligence contracts, and the HAARP facility all in one move.
So what does this all mean for the public? When you lay out that timeline, the glaring paradox of this entire project becomes impossible to ignore.
The open houses, right?
Yes. On one hand, the military happily hosts public open houses at the HAARP facility in Alaska. They invite high school science classes to come look at the antennas. They smile for the cameras and say, "Nothing to see here, folks. It's just basic research into the northern lights."
Very PR friendly.
But the corporations actually building, designing, and funding the technology specialize in the deepest, darkest espionage and surveillance on the planet. I mean, I can't help but feel like the open house is just an elaborate magic trick.
Misdirection.
Exactly. The magician waves his right hand with the smiling scientists and the high school kids, intentionally drawing your eye so you don't look at the left hand holding the black budget defense contracts and the patents for atmospheric disruption.
And that skepticism isn't just paranoia, you know. It is entirely justified by the internal documents uncovered in the investigative files.
Like the memo.
Yeah, the PLGP Technical Memorandum number 195. This was an internal Air Force document, definitely not meant for public eyes, and it completely contradicted the smiling public relations spin.
What did it say?
The memo revealed active plans to network HAARP with other global transmitters to create a unified electromagnetic shield. It detailed military applications and communication disruptions that went far, far beyond just studying the aurora borealis.
Unbelievable.
When you read the internal classified memos alongside the sanitized public statements, the disconnect is staggering.
Which is exactly why we need to move past the internet, rumors about mind control, and focus on the real documented environmental dangers.
Right, the actual physics.
Let's look at what independent, highly credentialed atmospheric scientists are actually worried about when they look at HAARP. Because you don't need a conspiracy theory to be terrified. The known physics alone are enough.
Absolutely. The sources quote a physicist named Dr. Richard Williams who reviewed the project and coined the term skybusting to describe what HAARP was doing to the upper atmosphere.
Skybusting, that sounds violent.
It is. But the most illuminating perspective comes from Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher, a particle physicist. She provides a brilliant analogy to help visualize the immense risk. She compares the Earth's ionosphere to a giant, delicate soap bubble surrounding the planet.
Oh, I love this analogy.
It's so good. If you've ever watched a soap bubble, you see the beautiful colors swirling on the surface. But as the tension shifts, a black spot forms where the membrane is stretched to its absolute limit, and eventually the whole thing violently pops.
And pumping gigawatts of highly focused radio frequency energy into that delicate membrane isn't just gathering data, it's actively stressing the system.
Exactly. The ionosphere is an incredibly delicate, constantly shifting electrical ecosystem. Rauscher and other independent scientists fear that slicing into this layer with what they call a focused microwave night could cause irreversible tears.
And once you tear it,
The danger of the soap bubble analogy is that surface tension doesn't just affect one spot. If you poke a soap bubble in one place, the ripple of tension travels across the entire sphere. Furthermore, by pumping this massive amount of energy into the sky, you are directly interfering with the Earth's natural extremely low frequency, or ELF, waves.
What do those do?
The Earth's magnetic grid uses these natural low-frequency vibrations to synchronize global biological systems.
Wow. The sources also dive into this phenomena of rivers of water vapor. Apparently, there are massive, invisible bands of water vapor flowing through the lower atmosphere, acting like massive conveyor belts that dictate global weather patterns.
And those are sensitive to thermal shifts.
Extremely. The profound fear among these independent scientists is that if you create an artificial sustained electromagnetic storm high above the Earth in Alaska, the resulting thermal and magnetic shifts could actually deflect these rivers of vapor.
Which changes everything.
Right. If that happens, you aren't just observing the weather. You are permanently altering where rain falls and where catastrophic droughts occur on a global scale.
And perhaps the most unsettling detail in the investigative files is that the experimenters themselves openly admit they do not know the exact saturation point of the ionosphere.
Wait, they don't even know?
They really don't. They are deliberately pushing the system past known thresholds of energy dissipation simply to see what happens. It's a scientific attitude of, let's zap it with 1 billion watts and find out.
Let's bring that right down to earth for you, the listener, because the hypocrisy is stunning. Think about how we approach environmentalism in our daily lives.
We're so careful with the micro stuff.
Exactly. We worry endlessly about microscopic amounts of chemical pollution down here on the ground. We rigorously monitor car exhaust fumes. We debate plastic straws. We measure parts per million in our drinking water.
But then there's HAARP.
Right. Here's a massive military-funded experiment that deliberately boils a localized section of the upper atmosphere. Our sources point out that this immense, unnatural influx of electromagnetic radiation could disorient flocks of migrating waterfowl that happen to fly over the facility.
Just completely mess up their internal navigation.
It could deeply confuse magnetically sensitive salmon trying to find their ancient spawning grounds in the Alaskan rivers.
Oh.
I mean, how is a project with that kind, potentially devastating planetary footprint allowed to proceed for decades with almost zero independent, non-military environmental oversight?
It's crazy. And it raises an important question about a critical blind spot in how humanity approaches its environment.
Which is?
We fiercely protect the ground we walk on and the water we drink, but we often treat the upper atmosphere as an infinite, empty void that can safely absorb whatever excess energy or radiation we throw at it.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right. But the ionosphere isn't a void. It is a highly active membrane deeply connected to the jet stream, to animal navigation, and to the fundamental electrical balance of the entire planet.
So let's tie all of these threads together. This deep dive into the remote Alaskan wilderness shows us a landscape defined entirely by extremes.
Very extreme.
In the 1950s, the brutal, isolating, and economically depressed environment of Portlock gave birth to the legend of the Nantiinaq, a monster born of the natural world, representing a vulnerable community's profound fear of the unknown.
And today, that exact same geographical isolation provides the perfect, undisturbed cover for HAARP, a potential monster of the technological world.
The technological monster, yeah.
And the reason this complex history matters to you, the listener right now, is that you don't have to believe in Bigfoot or subscribe to wild mind control conspiracies to be deeply concerned about what's happening.
Not at all.
Whether it's massive defense contractors trading world-altering patents in the dark, or atmospheric scientists sky-busting just to see how far they can push the envelope, we all live under the exact same delicate soap bubble of an ionosphere.
It really is all connected.
Yep.
We respond to the vast, terrifying wilderness by either hiding from imaginary monsters in the fog or by building very real, very powerful machines to dominate the sky.
We just can't leave the unknown alone.
No, we really can't. Which leaves you with one final thing to chew on long after you finish listening.
Oh, this is a good one.
If the military publicly admits they were building a billion-watt ionospheric heater in the 1990s, a machine explicitly based on Nikola Tesla's century-old ideas of atmospheric manipulation, what kind of basic research are they quietly funding right now?
Right.
In some isolated pocket of the world that we won't even hear about for another 30 years. The next time you step outside and look up at a perfectly clear, silent night sky, ask yourself, what exactly is passing through the silence?
A question definitely worth asking.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Keep questioning the unknown, and we'll catch you on the next one.